microphone video version of the podcast. Oh, hello. Welcome to the Four Geeks and a Microphone video version of the podcast.
Take two. Take
Take
three.
two. Take four?
We're live.
All right, so I'm Dave Haga, and I'm here with two of the other geeks from the podcast. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm Tony. I'm the only Tony, so I can just say Tony.
I'm Moyer. Nobody else. Everybody just calls me Moyer. Hello, everybody.
Hello, world.
So we're here today to talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy movie that just came out a week ago, and what we thought of it, and what was, good, and what was maybe bad about it, and things like that. So let's get started. Tony, what did you think of the movie, since this was one of your movies in our movie draft that we're doing?
Yeah, holy shit, Mills. Like,
Yeah. Holy shit, as in I need this to do at least 300 million for me to even have a prayer. Wait, what do you want now? What I thought of the movie?
What do you think of the movie in general?
I liked it. I've seen it twice now, and I might have to see it again just to give some extra support. That $10 could make a difference.
We can talk about this later. I know it's not really adamant, but has anybody checked the numbers for this weekend? Because Turtles did fucking awesome.
So Turtles is estimated that it did over 25 million for yesterday, for Friday, and the estimate for Guardians is about 12.5 million. The estimate for the weekend in Box Office Mojo is pretty on par. The estimate for Turtles is about 64 million for the weekend, and for Guardians is about 41.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna land pretty firmly in second place there, Mills. But I still like, especially the Turtles doing 60-some million this weekend.
Well,
Ryan's too far out.
The only chance that I have is that I guess we can talk more about the draft later, but the only chance I have is if Guardians has legs and Ryan's other movies don't. Like Maleficent went 8 weeks.
Yes, it did. And Turtles is from what I've read, Turtles is just a wretched pile of, goat feces, basically, right? Like,
I don't
nobody
think it'll last beyond 4 weeks. The question is how much damage it's going to do in 4 weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers now. Last weekend, you were at 384 million. He was at 469 million.
Yeah.
He's going to get, say, 65 from Turtles this weekend and maybe 15 from Into the Storm. That's another 80. That puts him at 550. Like, Mills, like...
I'm going to get a total of about 80 between last Sunday and this Sunday. I'll be sitting at about 464.
Yeah. And you will lap me at some point. Like, I've pretty much conceded second place. Like, I'm holding on by my fingernails to third place in front of Matt, but with Guardians probably going to do over 200 million, 225, 250 is within sight at this point.
Well, sure. It depends on how everything else does, but just looking at the numbers, I mean, comparing it to everything else this year, including Captain America 2, which opened in April, like, it's doing better on a daily basis than any other movie. So hitting 300 million is certainly possible.
No, it is possible. I mean, it's only a few $1 million behind Transformers was at this point. And
your Transformers or the good Transformers?
No, the fourth Transformers.
Okay.
So it's only a few $1 million behind that for the 8-day total, which means that since it's probably going to do a lot better long term, you're probably going to hit 225 to 250 without any problem. Yeah. You might hit 300 million without any problem if it goes long enough.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if it does what Maleficent did, where it ekes out 12 million and then 7 million and then 5 million, like, it could go maybe 7 or 8 weeks. the thing that's interesting too, I was looking. If you look at Captain America 2, that movie really didn't hit its stride until about weeks 3 to 4. And if it had been part of the draft, it would have topped for us. I think week 7, it hit 250 million and some change. And this movie, Guardians, is actually trending better than Captain America 2.
So
Oh,
let's talk about that. Why do we think it's trending better? Like, one of the big topics before this movie came out, especially, I mean, even you and me, Hager, we were sitting in this office saying, man, it's a bunch of obscure characters that nobody's ever heard of. Yeah, it looks good, but 150, 175 maybe tops, because but none of the trailers have really tied it into the rest of the Marvel movies. Like, you look at the trailers and they look fun, they look interesting, but not a single thing in the trailers would say, hey, this is part of the whole Marvel spectrum.
this movie, I think, was the test for Marvel. This was Marvel's kind of test to go, can we take a group of characters that nobody was all that familiar with and make them successful? And through great writing, great directing, an awesome soundtrack, they were able to do that. And I mean, even the little parts of the movie that, kind of bothered me a little bit the first time I saw it, didn't bother me at all really the second time I saw it. So I mean, this movie has legs. I think this movie is really, really fun, and it's just an all-around good movie. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but the end of the movie where all the heroes are kind of grabbing each other's hands to defeat Ronan finally. I mean, that has me choked up a little bit. I mean, it's a really good scene.
I'm emotional anyway, so it's like the 5th scene that got me choked up. But yeah,
Well, the opening scene, I mean, that'll make a guy cry if he's not prepared for it.
yeah, for sure.
Um,
I mean, I think just to piggyback on what Haga said, I think it's funny. I think it's got a lot of heart. Um, I, I think the best part of it is really the rapport between the main 5 Guardians. I mean, their personalities are all so different and unique, and it's just and it's really fun. I mean, I think that one of the downfalls, regardless of the reviews, which I think might be another positive element of this, I think that one of the things which is sometimes problematic for a lot of summer tentpole movies is that they take themselves really seriously, and because of that, they can sometimes be not as fun to watch. Whereas Guardians is very intentionally a fun movie. We're not going to take this overly seriously. We know that it's a fucking talking raccoon and a giant tree, and I think that it's just really fun. I think also it'll succeed, and it has succeeded because it might not be for little kids, but certainly there's going to be. I do think that the PG-13 rating is probably somewhat harsher than what the actual audience will be who goes to this. I think that you could easily take 7, 8, 9-year-old kids and up to Guardians. I mean, I saw
I'm
that
going to
movie.
disagree with you a little bit there, because the two scenes where the people like kind of get torn apart are a little rough. One, the scene where the servant of the collector grabs the gem and is literally like torn apart, like shredded and disintegrated. That's a little hard to see. And then when Peter Quill grabs the gem at the end from Ronan and he starts to get torn apart, that's a little rough. So 6, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, that's maybe a little young. 10, 11, 12, absolutely. I think that they would be fine for them. But really little kids, I don't think that it's quite right for them.
I'm thinking little kids in the 3 or 4 or 5-year-old range, and I think, I mean, for me, like speaking personally, I was watching the original Halloween when I was like 6 and 7 years old. So I think maybe that's an exception. I'm not saying that my parents should have let me watch it, right? But like, I haven't killed anybody yet.
Well, I think the original Halloween has less blood in it, though, than this movie. So just throwing that out there.
No. Anyway, we're not going to have that argument, but so the point is, the other thing is that even if some people's sensibilities wouldn't want their kids going to it. I certainly, I mean, I witnessed firsthand people bringing small children in the 7 or 8 range. Even there was 1 or 2 in the 4 or 5 year old range. So uh, people are going to do that, and I think that for parents who aren't as strict or aren't as sensitive with the kind of scenes that you're talking about, there is potential for repeat viewing, I think.
Agreed.
But aside from that, yeah, I mean, it's certainly parents are going to have different approaches to that. But um, even, I mean, it's just a fun. It's a very fun, funny kind of movie, and it's very light, regardless of maybe a handful of scenes which are potentially objectionable. Like the overall ethos of the film is very light.
Yeah,
That I agree with.
if you look at other like PG-13 superhero movies, like compare this to the PG-13 Dark Knight, and like yeah, they're the same rating, but holy God, they are on two different ends of that spectrum. Um,
Why so serious, Moyer? Why
Yeah.
so serious?
to kind of go back on something that you said, Mills, the fact that it looks, and it is, but even in the trailers, it just looked like a fun movie to go see. In stark contrast, me and Hager were talking about how Hercules looked boring as shit in the trailers. Like, in the trailers at least, I haven't seen the movie. I don't know if anybody has, but it just looks completely humorless, dull, and something that we have seen like 5 or 6 times before. Another thing, I was reading some reviews of the Turtles movies that came out yesterday, and Ninja Turtles should be fun. It should be a kind of lighthearted, fun, comedic action movie. And everything that I've been reading says it's just dull as shit, basically. There's almost no humor. Any humor they try to inject is really bad and underplayed, and it just comes off as kind of lifeless.
All right, so back on topic, Guardians of the Galaxy. Since we've all seen it, who's your favorite character in the movie? Let's start with you, Moyer.
I gotta pick a favorite character. Shit, I don't know. I barely know their names. Like the raccoon was pretty cool. What was the wrestler guy?
Drax, the Destroyer.
Rex Destroyer. I don't really follow wrestling that much, but for a wrestler, he did a very decent job. Like they didn't ask a ton of him, but what he needed to do, I thought he did it well. So yeah, him or the raccoon, Rocket the Raccoon. For a CGI little raccoon, I thought they did a pretty good job of him.
Yeah, no, Rocket I thought was amazing. He was probably my favorite character in the movie, both because of how well done the character was, and because even though I knew it was Bradley Cooper doing the voice of Rocket, whenever he spoke, I couldn't see Bradley Cooper anywhere in that character. I just saw Rocket. So I thought that was amazingly and very, very well done. And you even kind of got like a little arc with the character of going from kind of hardcore mercenary to somebody who kind of cares and gives a shit about what's going on and is trying to help. So I thought that was really well done. He was probably my favorite character in the movie. Tony?
That's really tough to answer because part of the appeal is watching how all 5 of them interact with each other and interact with other people. But I think I'd have to give 2 answers. I think that I would be the closest to Groot. Not obviously in terms of stature, being only 5'8", but I mean he's sort of the heart of the group. Like he's really the moral center of the group, and he's kind of the one who gets thrown into whatever lifestyle he has been thrown into, sort of in spite of himself, I think. In terms of being a thief and a treasure collector, a bounty hunter, basically, is what Rocket and he are. But in terms of the performance, I would say that I liked watching Drax. Uh, I mean, Star Lord is funny, but you go in knowing Chris Pratt is already funny. So seeing Drax's character and his one-liners and Dave Bautista's performance was incredible. And I'm gonna nitpick a comment that Moyer said. Like for a wrestler, he's a very good actor. I think that there are a lot of wrestlers just historically. I watched wrestling when I was a kid, like all through the late '80s and early '90s, and I think that a lot, not every one of them, but a lot of those guys, I think, are very, very good actors.
Well, they're actors. They are acting. I
Well,
will
I mean,
admit to
obviously
that.
they're acting right. I mean, we all know that, but I mean, like look at The Rock. You take him out of that context and you put him in different roles, and he's actually a very good actor. I think, and some the problem so much with these kind of guys is that they become typecast because they're big, they're tall, they're buff guys that they usually get cast as hitmen or as thugs or bouncers or something like that, which in most films those kind of characters don't really have much to do. I mean, they're not Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise looking kind of guys, and I think that Dave Bautista's performance was maybe the best performance of the movie, and
It was good. It was really good.
someone
It,
who I would love to see, like the Rock has sort of transitioned, but I could easily see either one of these guys, if given the right role, having an Oscar-worthy performance.
I'm
Not
not
a, not
as
a,
convinced as Tony is about that. Because the first time I saw the movie, Drax was the one character that kind of bothered me a little bit because I couldn't see anybody but Dave Bautista in the role. I couldn't see the character. Although the second time I saw it, I was able to enjoy it a lot more, and whatever little problems I had with him in the role really disappeared as I was able to enjoy some of the one-liners a lot more. Like the scene where they're talking about things going over his head, and he's like, nothing would go over my head. My reflexes are too fast, and I'd catch it. And it just little things like that that got drowned out the first time I saw it really shined the second time I saw it.
yeah. There's a lot that got lost on me because I went and saw it Thursday night, so the theater was pretty full, and there's a lot of lines that I lost because of people laughing.
Hmm. So, um,
well, what about you, Hitya?
what about me?
You haven't answered your own question.
I sure did. Rocket.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just need to pay attention more, Moyer.
Ah.
You have another swig of your whiskey.
So, the other thing I was curious about what you guys thought is how well Marvel did both showing that this was part of the larger Marvel universe and how well they did kind of hinting at what will come from this movie in future Marvel releases.
I don't know. I mean, okay. I've never really followed Marvel comics. That's the thing. And Brian actually had to remind me that they actually touched on the Infinity Gems on Thor 2, because I had blinked that out completely.
Yep, the Ether, or whatever it was called.
So I like the movie, but how it actually ties into the rest of Marvel, for me, is still really loose. Like, I get it. There's some loose ties. Okay, we saw a glimpse of Thanos at the very end of the Avengers movie. It stayed past the credits. But beyond that, this could have been, for most of the movie, this could have been any sci-fi movie. Not a whole lot for it tied me into like the Marvel universe.
What about you, Tony?
I think that they did probably enough of what they needed to make it clear. I mean, they show the cosmic cube, they show the ether at the collector's. Well, they show the collector, Benicio del Toro, who shows up, I believe, at the end of Thor 2, and So, and then they spend more time talking about the Infinity Stones or the Infinity Gauntlets or whatever the terms are. Um, but I think it's it's questionable the extent to which they wanted to make the connection. I mean, obviously they do, but at the same time, I think this is why that you don't see a trailer with Iron Man flying around, for instance, is because they also want this to be its own movie. And yes, they emphasize Marvel Studios, the makers of Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and I think that was very smart. But I think that Disney's marketing crew emphasized the comic elements and the sci-fi elements and tried to introduce the characters because nobody knows who they are aside from comics fans. Um, so I think they said what they needed to say. And the other thing about this too is that, and I've read this in a number of places, is that Guardians of the Galaxy is really sort of the main introduction, not only to a Guardians franchise, which they've already announced a sequel for 2017, but it's also supposed to be the big major foray into the space kind of realm or world of Marvel. And they do that a little bit with Thor, but their primary reason that they had Thor was because he's one of the original Avengers. Same thing with Hulk, same thing with Iron Man, and Captain America came in very soon after the original Avengers in the 60s. So from all the stuff that I've read, that they have sort of a three-prong approach. The first approach, which is really established, is sort of the Earthbound heroes, right? Like Iron Man and Hulk and Black Widow and Captain America are very Earthbound. I mean, Thor kind of throws a kink in the wrench, but he has to be there in a way because he's an original Avenger. Um,
Mhm.
and then the second one being the space element and sci-fi element, which really was inaugurated with Guardians, which is why there's not really any reference to what's going on at Earth. You see Thanos, so in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there are sort of things are becoming a little bit clearer in terms of the connections. And the third wave, the third prong of this, not the third wave in terms of chronologically, but the third prong in terms of what Marvel's trying to do is going to be the supernatural slash magical elements, and that's going to be inaugurated with the Doctor Strange movie. Um, Now, I mean, I don't work for Marvel, but I'm just going by all the stuff that I've read in a number of different places that is their sort of track that they're taking. So the Guardians was really successful, and we'll see. And I'm sure that their hope, obviously, that Doctor Strange will inaugurate not only not only a Doctor Strange franchise, but that third prong in the supernatural slash magical world of Dormammu and Mephisto, and maybe even Ghost Rider again. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I I think that Doctor Strange could be really, really good. He's a fun character, but he has been very misrepresented and very underused at times. So I'm looking forward to that one myself. Um,
Yeah,
but in terms of this movie, what I see is I see this movie. Um, I see that it does tie into the other movies because of Thanos and because of the Kree and some of the other space stuff that we've seen, mostly in the Thor movies. But because of this movie, I cannot wait until Avengers 3 because you're going to have all of the Earthbound characters and the Guardians and probably other heroes that you find in between then and now, all in one giant movie. And that is going to be so fun. It's
is
going
that
to
what,
be such
is that what you're gonna do
an
for the
amazing movie. I can't wait.
interesting? Yeah, that I was kind of hoping that I didn't hear that for sure if they were gonna have the Guardians in Avengers 3, but
I don't see why they can't. I haven't read that that they're going to, but because of Thanos, in the comics anyway, it's literally almost the entire Marvel universe that has to team up to stop him.
yeah,
So in the movies, I mean, it's going to cost a lot of money to do it, but I can't see them not having the Guardians of the Galaxy show up in Avengers 3 to really kind of tie everything together and bring home like the really big final. You guys have waited 20 years for these movies to all come to this moment. Here you go, have fun.
Yeah, yeah. It depends. I mean, certainly Guardians itself sets up, it foreshadows a future encounter with Thanos for sure. Um, and if Avengers 3 ends up being the place where Thanos is defeated, then it would make sense that everybody converges. If if Avengers 3 is only where we finally see Thanos fight the Avengers for the first time, then maybe it's not going to be till Avengers 4 where you have everyone together. I have no idea. But certainly between now and then, at least Ant-Man and Doctor Strange are part of the plan.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to both of those movies. So far, Marvel has not disappointed me with any of the movies that they've done as part of their core Marvel universe, cinematic universe. So I've been very happy. I was a little skeptical on Guardians of the Galaxy. Overall, ended up really liking the movie. Thought that it was really well done. Final thoughts from you guys on the movie?
Well, just before we're in a nice little circle jerk about this movie. Is there anything people did not like? Because there was a few things that, like, it was a good movie, it was entertaining. I might even see it again, and I'll probably buy the Blu-ray when it comes out. But for me, there was a couple of things. Like, for instance, the villain in this movie. Like, okay, Marvel's done really good with Loki, and Loki is a great villain. He's a great actor, great character. But holy shit, was this villain bland? Like, just
Yeah.
was there? And Haga, before you start screaming over there, was there any real difference in character at all between this villain and the villain from Thor 2? At all? Like, they could have been the same character for all I knew. Like, just completely bland, lifeless, characterless, just angry, destroy everything now, like, so I wasn't too happy with the villain.
I agree. I think that was one of the. I mean, granted, few problems I had with it, but yeah, the villain. And Ega, if you disagree, please make your case. But yeah, he was very bland. Not at all interesting, not at all humanized in any way. Loki is great because they had 3 different movies to sort of develop Loki's personality. But Ronan, I mean, was just like a really pissed off dude with like football makeup and a hammer. And uh, I mean, it wasn't fun because of Loki. I'm sorry, Ronan. Ronan was just like a foil to the other. It was fun because of the Guardians. And I mean, so in that sense, it's forgivable. But I just don't think he. Yeah, I agree. And it's not just Ronan or the other dude from Thor 2, whose name I totally have forgotten now.
Of course, yeah, because he was meaningless.
Yeah, and there's a lot of movies that do that. I mean, not to pick on these movies, like that's a huge problem with a lot of action movies is that the villains like are not at all interesting.
Now, I am going to disagree with you two because
of course, we knew you were going to, because your name's Haga, so.
No, I disagree because, well, while I do agree on some points, like Ronan is a little bit focused in what he does. I don't think he's bland. Ronan the Accuser is actually one of the better villains in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, but you have to separate the character from the comics to what you saw on the screen there.
And on screen, I think he was a good villain. He had motivations for what he was doing. He did not agree with the peace treaty between the Nova Empire and the Kree Empire, and he was going to take back everything that was the Kree Empire's and destroy the Nova Corps while he was at it. He was kind of a rogue agent. He didn't have a huge growth, but he had a little bit of growth in the fact that he approached, or he had made a deal with Thanos. He went back to Thanos, and said, no, I'm going to do this, whether you like it or not, and actually stood up to Thanos, which I thought was kind of an interesting moment. Even to the point where once he got the Infinity Stone, he kept it for himself instead of delivering it to Thanos, going completely against his will. Now, is he the most interesting villain out there? No. Loki definitely is more interesting because he is more humanizing. But at the same time, that's what I liked about Ronan, is that he wasn't necessarily humanizing. Yeah, they weren't humanizing him. They weren't trying to give him motives other than, his very basic motive of, I want revenge against the Nova Empire.
But it's so cliche. It's
Yeah.
overdone.
And I'm okay with cliche in this matter because there was so much else going on. The one thing that I really had a little problem with, especially the second time I saw it, was the Nova Corps. They were good in general, but in the comics, it's, and I get why they did this. In the comics, it's guys in suits instead of guys in starships. But they seemed very inept and very kind of, almost secondary to everything else, including Ronan. So it's not like you really cared about him all that much, although this is one of the few roles that John C. Reilly has done that I didn't hate him in. So I guess that's saying something, but...
While we're on that topic, when I was driving home last night with some other people, we were all discussing, it's kind of weird that this movie has so many big-name actors and they don't really do anything with them. For instance, John C. Reilly, he's not, he didn't really do anything in the movie. He was just kind of there. He's a big name.
I wouldn't say a big name. He is a name. But
he has headlined his own movies, so that's big enough for me. People know who he is, and they didn't really use any of his strengths. So that's my other issue with the movie is they got all these big name actors. Why did Vin Diesel have to be Groot? Why? I don't.
Because he's got a great voice for that role. And they didn't have to do a lot to change his voice or modify his voice. It's mostly his natural voice.
Yeah, and it does contribute to the star power draw. If anybody was underused, John C. Reilly at least had a couple of lines. Glenn Close was underused.
She did nothing. Why even have her?
Yeah.
What was the point of having her?
Now, unless you're gonna, the thing is that I'm willing to forgive it if they're planning on doing more with these characters in the future. Then you don't have to recast this person used to be a schlub and now we're gonna cast someone else in the same role. But aside from sort of forward-looking, Glenn Close is really badly underused.
The only thing I could think of is Tony. You had mentioned that they were doing the space and sci-fi section of the Marvel Universe. They could be doing a Nova movie or a Nova Corps movie or something like that next, and then you already have John C. Reilly and Glenn Close, and then you could just build upon that cast.
Yeah, they're doing Guardians of the Galaxy 2 next. That's already announced. That's coming out at the end of July of 2017. After that, who knows? They could do a Nova movie or whatever. But certainly just looking at this film, both of those actors were underused. I don't have a problem with Vin Diesel being Groot, though.
It was just kind of weird because I read all these articles about him walking around in stilts with a mocap, CGI bodysuit on, and it's that's great. Groot was a good character, but they could have gotten any stuntman to do that. They didn't really need Vin Diesel. Which Vin Diesel was fine. I'm not arguing his performance was off or anything, but
It's overkill is your argument.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that, did anybody catch Nathan Fillion in there?
No, because he was so hidden under makeup and behind stuff. It was it was barely his voice.
Exactly. So why have him? Why even do it?
If I had to guess, both Nathan Fillion and Vin Diesel wanted to be in this movie, and they took whatever part they could get. If I'm guessing, that's what I'm guessing, is that they just wanted to be part of this movie. and they didn't care how big their part was or what they had to do. They just went, no, no, let me be in this movie. I want to be in this movie.
So wait, so who was Nathan? I mean, I have an idea, but which one did he play?
He was the blue alien that got grooted up his nose.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But like I'd see that scene again, and like I don't see anything of Nathan Fillion in that character. So, but
So Nathan Fillion was in Slither, which was also directed by James Gunn. So who approached who, I don't know, but the director and Nate Fillion have worked together before.
sure,
Yeah.
as is the Walking Dead guy. What's his name? The blue skin guy with the crazy mohawk and the arrow.
Okay, so can I say another scene that bothered me? But granted, it's in like almost every fucking action movie ever made.
Sure.
I'm listening.
The scene where Yondu finally gets to show us what his weapon does. You have like a dozen Kree standing around with guns, and I see this all the time in action movies where they're just trying to show off a cool scene or a cool weapon, and there's 13 guys, 12 or 13 guys standing around, and his weapon goes flying off, and it can only kill one dude at a time, right? Like you don't.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're the 11th or 12th guy and you're still just standing there holding your gun, like I hate that. And you guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah. They were just they took their time, like.
Your second guy, you're surprised and oh my god, like you bite it. But then by the time you're sitting there for 5 seconds watching that thing fly around and you're still just standing there with your gun like this. No, I loved it because his weapon's really cool. But at least fucking try to dodge out of the way. Like something. They were literally, I saw it twice, they were just standing there. And I know it's nitpicky, and I know it happens in every action movie, but I really, really hate it.
See, and for me, the second time I saw that scene, I thought that it was just happening so quickly that they didn't have time to get out of the way because of how fast that thing was whipping around. And I thought that they just maybe played, were trying to play with the perspective a little bit to show that, he was whistling and making it move. But I thought that it was really moving quick, and they didn't have the time to react.
Oh, it was. So. No. I'll even grant the first 5 or 6 guys. Maybe. But, like, I'll triple my number. But by the time you're the 12th guy, and I watched it twice very closely, like, it takes about 3 or 4 seconds, and again, like, you've seen 6 of your buddies just bite it, including the dude in the fucking tank, or whatever that thing was, and then you're still standing there like this, like not even ducking, not even dodging, not even trying to shoot, like nothing.
But Tony, just to make this really geeky, in D&D and Pathfinder, 1 round is 6 seconds, and you can shoot 7 guys in a single round in D&D with bows and arrows, so, yes, I mean, there you go.
But at least in D&D, those rounds, technically all the action's happening at once. They just have to parse it out for the sake of initiative and for the sake of real-time play.
But see, what it was is Yondu had won initiative, and he went first with a full round action, and he was able to kill all 12 guys. I mean, he's just that good.
Yeah, apparently. Like, now that makes more sense. But still, it's every time I see it. But it's certainly not a fault of Guardians exclusively. Like name the action movie. Almost every single one has a scene like that.
True. So anything else that people were bothered by, or?
No, overall, it was an excellent movie. Few small nitpicky things, but yeah, I was quite happy with it. For me, it didn't really have much connection to the rest of the Marvel movies, but as a self-contained sci-fi action comedy movie, I thought it was very good.
Yeah, it was very good. And I will say one thing about the villains, and Hege will probably agree with this, is that when you have movies with an ensemble cast, it's very, very difficult to give everybody their proper due, right? So had there been one hero and it was Star-Lord and the villain was still very dull, I think it would be more unforgivable. But considering that the main focus of the movie is on the 5 heroes, it would be very difficult to have a very sort of interesting and deep look at a villain. Like with With Loki, you can do that because it's like, here's Thor, and he's your main dude, and then here's Loki, who's the villain. Like, you have more time to flesh out those personalities. Whereas in Guardians of the Galaxy, you have 5 people, and those are your main focus. And so the villain is almost like a force of nature, like he was in Thor 2, where he's just like, here's this thing that he's doing, and yes, he's a little bit dull, but that's not really the point of what they were doing. In an ensemble movie, it's difficult to do. And if you look at, maybe this isn't fair, but I compared it to Lord of the Rings, where that's a huge ensemble cast, and there's no personality to Sauron, right? Like, he's just this big fucking fiery eye.
Yeah.
Saruman has a little bit more personality, but not Sauron. And he's just sort of a force of nature that they have to sort of reckon with.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Tony. I think that in a movie like this, having a villain that's maybe tied a little bit into tropes and, a little cliched, it's not a bad thing, because it gives you more time to focus on the heroes, on the people who you actually want to focus on. So I don't have a problem with the villain in this movie, and that's probably why I don't have a problem with the villain in this movie, and the fact that he's maybe not as exciting as Loki or as exciting as even like Winter Soldier. But
right.
So
the movie's about the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Ronan's there really to give them something to do, kind of.
Well, that and the Guardians of the Galaxy has such great writing that even at one point in time, Star-Lord refers to the where he might as well have referred to the Infinity Gem as a MacGuffin. I mean, he's pretty much like, so why is everybody after this thing? It's like the Maltese Falcon or the blue suitcase. Or, I mean, he basically calls it a MacGuffin. So they were very self-aware of the tropes and the cliches that they were using in this movie, I think.
Yep. But anyway, so those are the two only issues that I have with it. But it's very fun. I hope it'll do over 300 million. It's certainly possible. It's going to take a while. But...
I don't know, Mills. 300 is like, what other? Okay, Iron Man's done 300.
Every other Transformers movie that has come out has done over 300.
300 is a really high bar.
Well, I'm just saying it's on pace. Even if I don't get 300, I'd be surprised if it finished under 300 by the time it's out of the theaters.
All right.
It is right now $2 million behind Transformers 4. Now, it's going to last longer than Transformers 4, but...
Well, that's what I'm hoping, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good... You had a good pick. That and Maleficent, really good picks for you.
But, second place pretty for sure, but... I don't know. I'm skeptical. My hope is fading after fucking Ninja Turtles opening at 64 million.
Yeah, that's it. If Ninja Turtles had opened up around 30, 40, you still might have a shot, but 65, that means it's on pace to hit 150 at least. And even if Brian's other two movies still only do like 40 or 50 million, that's more than enough to put him over the top.
Yeah. I just hope it's at least close. We'll see, but I think it's very possible I'll finish less than 50 million behind him.
It'll be closer than I thought it was going to be.
I think that's it for today. For those listeners who are wondering, the movie draft that we're talking about can be found at our Facebook page at 4Geeks and a Microphone on Facebook. Look us up. Let us know what you think. We're out of here. You guys have a good day.
Bye-bye.